This video is about King Crimson. It's the album review for Larks Tongue and Aspic, which has 5 songs, and it was released on March 23rd in 1973, and it was produced by King Crimson. And King Crimson on this album is Robert Fripp, John Wetton, Bill Bruford, David Cross, and James Muir, or Jamie, as they refer to him. So what does that mean? Boz is out. Boz only did one album, Islands. Mel Collins is out. Ian Wallace, I believe, was the drummer on Islands. He's out. And the jazz band is out with Tippett. He was the piano player in the jazz band. He's gonzo. And the oboe player from Islands is gonzo. And this is a new band. And because of that, people consider this the first of, I guess, what you would call phase 2 for King Crimson. It's not quite as clear cut as the Rush stages. But even if you go to the King Crimson website, that's what they call them. This is phase 2. Cross is on mellotron and violin, and Muir does percussion, drums, and makes some other noises with bicycle horns and sheet metal and stuff. I mean, Cross has the bigger impact on the album, and you can really hear his impact with the violin. Like in some cases, the violin is the lead instrument, and I'll point that out. And it's pretty impressive. It's pretty striking and moving, actually, to have a violin on an album like this. Yeah. So what else? This is the second phase of King Crimson, and it's a new band and a new sound and a new vibe, and it's the same prog rock, jazz fusion and free form avant garde. But now what you've got for the first time is some metal in a King Crimson album. Bill Bruford coming over is a big deal after Close to the Edge from Yes. He was the drummer in Yes from the very beginning. I could argue that he isn't better than his predecessors in King Crimson, like Michael Giles or Andy McCullough, or even Ian Wallace, but his reputation matters, and this is the job he wanted, and he stated it. And I think I read once where he said the first time he saw King Crimson, he wanted to join the band. So this is a move that he wanted to make. But like I said, he's not better. He's personally my favorite drummer, but it works. It works, okay? The album cover, you've got the sun and the moon, and the sun is above the moon, and the sun is looking down, and the moon is blue, and the sun is that yellow orangish color, and the moon is looking up directly at the sun's chin, as you can see. See how he's looking up? And it's, I don't know what this color is, yellow or, it's like an off-white, I guess. Yeah. With a maroon or burgundy-ish border. See how the border is like... by the way, I'm not good at colors. Is that burgundy or maroon or... it's not purple. It's not quite red either. But you can see the borders kind of, you got a thin line on the inside and then a thicker line and then the thickest line right there. So some design put behind the album cover. And it's a fancy schmancy cover with a border. And the sun has these waves, which are kind of wavy, as you can tell. And they all look like they're the same, but they're going around. And yeah, it's pretty cool album cover. It's I guess it's sort of like with the sun and the moon like that. It's not like an eclipse, but kind of. Let's see. What do I have here? This is the 2-disc. See how it says 2 discs? This is the 2-disc 40th anniversary edition, and the inside you got pictures of the band and the names of the songs, but I guess what's important here is disc 1 is the 2012 stereo mix, and that was done by Steven Wilson of Porcupine Tree and other bands, and Fripp helped him. They're listed as mixed and produced from the original multi-track tapes, so they didn't put anything new in here from the original. And then there's some bonus tracks. Track 7 is Larks Tongue and Aspic Part 1, and it's an alternative mix that Wilson did. And then track 8 is Book of Saturday. It's an alternative take and the Talking Drum alternative take. Disc 1 is It's the original 1973 stereo mix, but it's been remastered. So that's what this is. And the artwork of the labels is kind of cool. It matches the I guess I don't know if that's yellow or I don't know what you'd call that, off white, but it has a similar color, and it's labeled disc one. And then the second disc looks the same. Let me pull that out. It's like that. See, second disc is the 30th anniversary edition. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. There isn't too much else to show you in here. On the back, you've got the names of the songs, and they tell you what. And, there's some pictures. And all these booklets, Fripp does a really good job of keeping a diary. And it's kind of interesting to read, but, I mean, if you want some inside hardcore baseball of King Crimson, then it's fun to read. And I've read some of this stuff in the past. Nothing too important to share here. But he does talk about the day in the liner notes. He talks about the day he invited John Wetton and Bill Bruford into the band. That was probably a big moment for him and for the band. Okay, what else before we get into it? What does it sound like? I'll say this. This is the best version of the band with this lineup, and the bass and violin turned way up, and the drums up front, and the mellotron is less up front on this album. It's more like used as an ambient sound design type thing. And Fripp is less up front and center, although that doesn't mean he isn't up front and center. He definitely is in moments. The lyrics are by Richard Palmer-James from Supertramp, and I think I read somewhere he's a friend of John Wetton, and he fills the gap created when Pete Sinfield got kicked out. On all the other albums, Pete Sinfield sort of came up with the theme and wrote the lyrics, and of course Pete went on to work with Greg Lake and ELP after this, so that's pretty much it for that. Let's get right into it. Track 1 is Larks Tongue and Aspic, Part 1, and it's a band composition credited to Cross, Fripp, Bruford, Muir, and Wetton, and it's 13 minutes and 36 seconds. Although that's a little bit deceiving. I looked this up. It's in the key of C major, which is what Chordify.net tells me. There aren't like thousands of contributions to that Chordify.net. It's maybe like 150 or something like that, but let's go with it. And, time-wise, this is real jazz fusion, so it's like a polyrhythm, I'm guessing. And it sounds like it's going 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2, but it's all over the place. And I would imagine the members of the band are all playing in different time signatures, which is the definition of polyrhythm, right? Anyway, for Larks Tongue and Aspic Part 1, the intro, it sounds like Muir hitting little chimes for about 3 minutes. And the introduction goes exactly from 000 to 3 minutes, dead on the nuts, before it goes to the second part. But unless you're listening to it with earbuds or headphones, you can't really hear the intro on a regular stereo unless you have it cranked up really loud. But when you hear it, it's reminiscent of the beginning of Close to the Edge. But it's different because it just sounds like a lot of chimes. We're Close to the Edge, you can hear like birds whistling and water running and all kinds of stuff. But it reminds me of that. I'm not saying they got the idea from that, but maybe they did. But it's similar. The second part of Lark's Tongue, Part 1, is it starts with a big guitar and violin at the 3-minute mark. The da na 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 da na 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 na. And then it does that for about a minute, and then at 4-minute mark, the violins come in. That dot 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 dot. That's when the tempo changes to that. And then at the 4:38 mark, so 38 seconds later, the da na 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 that comes back. Okay, and that's the second part of the song. The third part of the song is the 5-minute mark, right at 5 minutes. Bum ba da 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 da, and then the drums, and then there's like lots of what I would assume is Jamie Muir clicking and clacking, making all these weird sounds. I mean, that's really what he brought to the band. And other than that, he was like a older mentor for Bill Bruford, but he was just bringing the weird sounds, like you can hear it. The fourth part of the song starts at 6:16, which is an excellent part of the song. Everybody seems to be in their own jam with Fripp and Bruford in the lead. And then the fifth part of the song starts, it's the violin at 7 minutes and 48 seconds. The birds are chirping in the background. This part's mostly David Cross playing by himself, no percussion or very little percussion at 7:48. Dee, da da da, dee da. At the 10-minute mark, it sort of shifts off into sounds from Muir, and then the violin comes back, the whole dee, dee da da, dee da da. And then at 11:30, the violin continues with the bass and guitar. And that fifth part of the song is the longest stretch of the song. At 12:27 is the outro, which is the big climax, and the dee da da comes back, and I can hear muttering in the background. That, by the way, that dee dee da da, that's the violin with Cross, and you hear the muttering in the background and some jabbering. I don't know what they're saying, but excellent start to the album. Track 2 is Book of Saturday. It is 2 minutes and 56 seconds long, and it's lead vocals by John Wetton. And the song is credited to Fripp, Wetton, and Palmer-James. Of course, Palmer-James did the lyrics. And there's a quick intro, and it goes right into the verse. And it's in, Cordify says it's in the key of A minor. The drumming that Bruford does on this song is similar to what Giles does on Poseidon album, In the Wake of Poseidon. But Giles does it with less effort and more precision. You get to really get the feeling that Bruford's working hard to do the... just listen to it, you'll see what I mean, okay? The verse is, if I could deceive you, if I only could deceive you, forgetting the game, every time I try to leave you, you laugh just the same. Each verse is 7 lines, and there are 4 verses in the song. And you can hear Fripp's doing this. The instrumental part is 54 seconds to a minute and 48 seconds. And this features the violin with also some more of that light picking or plucking by Fripp. And at a minute 28, there is some scat by Wetton, the do-do-do. You know how he does that. And then the last part of the song is the outro. You make my life and times a book of bluesy Saturdays, and I have to choose. And that's a Book of Saturday. It's a verse, instrumental, the verse, and the outro, and that's Book of Saturday. Track 3 is Exiles at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. It's credited to Cross, Fripp, and Palmer-James. And this song has both mellotron and violin. And there are times when the violin is the lead instrument in the song, but you can also hear the mellotron underneath, even in the verse. And you really have to pay attention to catch it, but you can hear it under the mellotron. Exiles is in the key of G major with a much slower tempo and about 75 beats per minute. And it seems to me like 4/4 time. So none of the polyrhythm or craziness in this song. It's pretty much straight up. The intro to Exiles, it sounds like a Pink Floyd type intro, very spacey and eerie, almost like a Saucer Full of Secrets. And there's also a very Danzig Black Area 2 quality to it. It has this like thing going on in the intro. And then at a minute 57 seconds, the violin and the entire band comes in and plays the main melody of the song. And once the song actually gets going, the violin is the lead instrument along with Wetton's vocals. That whole... And the verse is, now in the faraway land, strange that palms of my hands should be damp with expectancy. That's the verse. And then the instrumental part of the song is from 2 minutes and 42 seconds to 3 minutes and 51 seconds, or for a total of about a minute and 9 seconds. And around the 3 minute 25 second mark is the main melody comes back, But most of that minute is, again, very airy, like the space rock type intro. And they're just kind of like pulling that back into the song, and then the violin comes in at 3:25. The final part of this song is the bridge. The bridge is Wetton, but Lord, I had to go. The trail was laid too slow behind me. And that's the song. And um, Wetton's vocals are amazing, and you can tell that this is more of a David Cross song. And I know Cross and Fripp get credited, but it seems like Cross. It's a Cross song, and Fripp probably did some contributions. But his impact on the band is huge. Okay, especially with the way he plays these leads. And the song structure is the verse, the instrumental. Well, let's go back to the beginning. There's that introduction, that whole space, eerie Pink Floyd type, Saucer Full of Secrets type introduction, and with the Danzig, ah. So there's the intro of the verse, the instrumental with the guitar, the violin lead, and then the verse, bridge, verse, and that's the song. Exiles for me, along with Lament and Epitaph, they're three of my favorite, the more King Crimson, softer, beautiful songs. Those are my top three. I'm a big fan. Track 4 is Easy Money. It's 7 minutes and 54 seconds, and it's credited to Fripp, Wetton, and Palmer-James. And Fripp wrote the verse, and John Wetton wrote the chorus, is what I had read, that they had and put it together. It's key of E minor, and it's 143 beats per minute. And Bruford, this is Bill Bruford's best work. He's banging on trash cans. That's what it sounds like. And I've actually seen the video to this on YouTube when the band's playing it. I should go back and watch it. Jamie Muir is making weird sounds with the sheet metal. The whole, I can't even make that. And then there's the big mellotron on this song, and I don't think there's a violin. I think that's Cross playing the mellotron. And Bruford is really the key to the song. He's what makes it interesting. The intro is the whole do da 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 dooby da, Wetton doing that scat type thing that he does. By the way, John Wetton's vocals, for me, he's either number 2 or 3 of my favorite. He's great. He's such a great singer. The verse is, your admirers in the street got to hoot and stamp their feet in the heat from your physique. And it's Wetton doing his best vocals. And the refrain is easy money. And then you hear that sheet metal, that I can't even do it. I don't know how you make that sound. But the next part of the song is the jam. The jam starts at 2 minutes and 31 seconds. And it begins with drums and a big thumping bass. By the way, Wetton is really underrated. The bass playing and the singing, and eventually the guitar solo comes into the jam part and the keyboard. And the guitar solo seems to be in 4/4 time. It runs from 3:12 to 6:32, so it's very long, over almost 3.5 minutes, over 3 minutes long. And then the da do dee dow comes back, and you replay the first verse after the guitar solo. And sometime after the 4-minute 30-second mark, it loses the 4/4 time, but then the 4/4 eventually comes back. We always have this argument, me and one of my friends, what do you like better, Easy Money or Big Money, which is a UK song? Not Big Money, Danger Money, I think it's what it's called. I like Easy Money. Easy Money's song structure is the intro, the verse, refrain, that big jam with the guitar solo in it that starts at 3:12, and then another verse, refrain, and then the song ends with laughter, which is kind of it's kind of funny when you hear it. Track 5 is the talking drum. It's 7 minutes and 24 seconds long. This is fairly lengthy. The first 2 minutes, there's not a lot happening, and then, by the way, it's an instrumental. And then at 2, you can hear the bass and drum rhythm that makes the song. Okay, and if you know what I'm talking about, then you know the whole It starts softly and builds until the big crescendo at 4 minutes and 20 seconds. And you know what I noticed about Fripp is he likes to do this 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute thing. Like this one, it's striking how at 2 minutes it changes. Same with Larks Tongues and Aspic Part 1. I mean, he's got that time. He's got that nailed right down. The violin is the lead instrument throughout the song, and Fripp is making a lot of sounds like the do da bop, do bop thing going on that he plays. At 5:15, the big ending starts. The bass is really loud, and Fripp and Cross dueling back and forth with their weird sounds. And like I said, it's an instrumental, and that's pretty much the whole song. I always think of the song in the version that's on Vroom Vroom, which is it's a live Vroom Vroom is a live disc from the double trio era of the band, or if you've ever heard Thrack, it's that lineup. When I think of the talking drum, I think of that. But then, there's no violin, but what you have is Fripp and Adrian Belew playing these parts. And but it is cool to hear it on the talking drum. The final track on the album is track 6, Larks Tongues and Aspic Part 2. It's 7 minutes and 7 seconds long. Da 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 da. This is the best Larks Tongue, crafted by Fripp. It's such a Fripp song too. I don't know how else to describe it. The way he builds a song, the way the song goes back and forth. Part A, Part B, Part A, Part B, just keeps going back and forth. The intro to the song is da 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 da. And then part 2 of the song starts at the intro is 46 seconds, and then part 2 is starts at 46 seconds. It's when the violin or the mellotron or whatever that is picks the da do da do da do da do da do da, and then there's a whistle at 1 minute and 43 seconds. Part 3 starts at 1:51. It's these grinding guitar parts. This is the big bass thumping part of the song, the da do 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 do, and it's fairly heavy for King Crimson. This is where King Crimson for Larks Tongue and Aspic gets the metal label from. I believe it's that part of the song. Part 4 starts at 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Back to the da do da do da do da do da, just like in part 2. Part 5 is 3 minutes and 43 seconds is when it starts. It's back to the da do da do da do da do da do, it's like the da do da part, but it's a lot harder. Da do da do da. And Fripp plays some edgy, screechy, industrial-like guitar, like lead guitar part in part 5, starting at 3:43. It's over the top, and that whole Robert Fripp lead part starts at 4 minutes and 1 seconds. And then part 6 starts at 4 minutes and 48 seconds. It's back to the da do da do da do da do da do da, just like in parts 2 and 4. And then part 7 is the final part of the song. It starts at 5 minutes and 59 seconds. This is the outro. La la do da, with Bruford and Muir doing some drum rolls, and there's slow, soft wind wind down to the song, to the end of the song, which starts at 6 minutes and 32 seconds until the end. It's just a very soft, mellow ending to the song. Okay, and that is the final track to the regular part of Larks Tongue and Aspic. It's called Larks Tongue and Aspic Part 2. And what you have going on here is bookends to the album. And I believe at the beginning I said there is only 5 tracks. And there is, but because Larks Tongue and Aspic is Part 1 and Part 2, and it's bookends of the album. So it's the 6th track of the album, 5 songs overall. You get what I'm saying. And by the way, like I mentioned a minute ago, many of these songs are featured on King Crimson live albums. And if you've ever heard a King Crimson live album, especially starting in right around the year 2010 and onward, they're playing Larks Tongue and Aspic a lot. They're trying to cycle through a lot of their songs and albums and all their tours, and they did a pretty good job at doing that. But like all these tracks, including Larks Tongues, Book of Saturday, Exiles is on many live albums. Easy Money is on live albums. It might be on Monkey Mind, now that I think about it. And the Talking Drum is definitely in... it's in Vroom Vroom, as I mentioned earlier. But these, like many of these songs are played on many of their live albums. It's just a cult-type record. So let's get into the big summary. Best-selling Records says that they've sold 17,800 copies of Larks Tongue and Aspic. I don't know how that can be. That doesn't seem right to me. Because the sales of this album peaked at number 20 in the UK and number 56 in Canada and number 61 in the USA. I don't know how that could add up to 17,800. King Crimson albums, they either don't sell well or they just don't report their sales. I'm guessing it's the latter. Okay, because like there's millions of King Crimson fans. Allmusic.com gives this album a 4.5 stars and has a pretty good write-up of it. And Rolling Stone gave it 5 stars back in the day, and ProgArchives.com has a consolidated user score of 4.42, which is good for number 14 overall on their top 100 all-time prog albums. In the Court of the Crimson King is number 3, and Red is number 8, so obviously this one would be behind those two. For me personally, I have this ranked 4th behind King Crimson, behind Red and Lizard and Wake. I think Red is their best album, and Lizard, I've talked about this in the Lizard review and in different albums, different ranking reviews. I'm a big fan of Lizard. I like the jazz, the craziness of Lizard, the just the spontaneity, the multi-level of the polyrhythms, and the use of saxophones and flutes all over the album, and the mellotron. I love Lizard. And then Wake, I've talked about this. I prefer Wake over In the Court of the Crimson King. So I think they're like brother and sister albums to me, Wake and In the Court of the Crimson King. Wake is the better one, but it's very formulaic, trying to sticking to the formula of Court. But I have this one ahead of Islands and also Court. So let's just leave it at that. I like this album a lot. A lot. And I really love Larks Tongue Part 2. It's my favorite of the Larks Tongue suite. Even more so than Level 5, although it's close. I like Level 5 quite a bit. Okay. That's the end of Larks Tongues. Next on the channel will be Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, which is a good one for them. And then after that will be Chicago 6, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, thanks everybody. Like and subscribe and comment. I like reading your comments and responding back. Sometimes I'm slow about it, but I try to respond back. So if you have any questions or if I said something wrong, I know at the beginning I said there were 5 tracks, but there's 5 songs, but there's 6 tracks because they've split Larks Tongues into 2. So, okay, thanks everybody. I'm out.